Hello, friends. You should be able to see me and hear me. It is time for the final piece of the puzzle. Hello, Snake Bard. I'm actually not going to use my fancy pants Squidmar airbrush just now. I'm going to use my other one because I'm going to do a lot of detail work. Sorry, the opposite of that. I'm not going to do a lot of detail work. I see what I'm doing there. That's not what we want. Thank you, Jimmy. In fact, maybe I am. I've tightened this fucker too tightly. Yes, time stop. Thank you. Stray represent. Monkey Yum Yum. Moomalem, hello. Yeah, I think that was the best Mini Masters episode so far. I think the way they edited. Hello, JD. Yeah, I definitely think it was the best episode so far. I've done myself a mischief here. Maybe I am using this airbrush. So I've over tightened this bad boy. Try and get. Come on, Dino. Use your strength, son. Where's me vice? Here's a fun little tip. I got lots of tips. You can just get one of these little vices. They cost you a couple of bucks, really. Try not to damage your precision equipment when you do this, of course, but sometimes you can just get a little bit of extra grip that you didn't have before. Sometimes you can damage your precision airbrush, so don't do that. Moomalen, yeah, not really. I don't really do a lot of content. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that I'm very bad at streaming and at doing things regularly. I do my hobby because I love doing my hobby. And unfortunately, sometimes that means I do a really bad job with streaming, with videos. Every now and then I'll do a video and I think I do pretty cool stuff. But yeah, most of the time it's just me coming on here when I feel like it. Or maybe I can try this actually. I'm painting stuff because I feel like it. I do have a YouTube channel, yes. My YouTube channel is Big Dino Plays. No, I think it's actually just my name. Oh, he's done it. He's done it. What a fucking legend. The Vice is the best. Yeah, if you just search Trent Dennison, it's probably on there. I'll get a link. Oh, you got it? Sweet. Yeah, so I do mostly do like live board game streams because I'm a mad board game fan as well. I play heaps of board games. And I live stream Kingdom Death. But yeah, every week I also do a painting stream. Alexa, airbrush on. And sometimes I do some more. But yeah, I'm not good for content. Really. If you're looking for someone to make really good regular content, I am not your guy. I do make regular content, but it's not good. It's just me doing the things that I love. Which is how I approached Miniature Masters, unsurprisingly. I'm sure people are enthusiastic to talk about the episode. I'm enthusiastic to talk about it as well. Because it's been... Sorry, Snake Bard. It's been 4 months. 4 months since we filmed that. And I have not been able to talk about anything. And that is just harder than you would think. I thought I was going to find that very, very easy. No, the opposite is true. it has proved to be extremely hard. But thank you. Yes, there will be spoilers tonight, so if you haven't watched the episode of Miniature Masters, I would advise not watching this stream. Because we're going to talk all things Mini Masters, probably. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I will, of course, point out that the two other finalists are both award-winning display painters. Aaron with 5. No, you're okay. You're okay. It's okay. Aaron's got 5 golden demons. The legend. Yeah, I do have 30 years of experience. That is absolutely correct, and that's been the thing that's kept me in good stead in this series. I've said it a few times, but there hasn't been a challenge that has come about that I haven't been comfortable in. I've done all of the things, and so that's just made it feel pretty relaxed for me the whole time. And they made the edit of me this episode made it look like I was struggling with my confidence in this episode, and I guess to an extent that was true. But I don't think I was ever feeling nervous that I wasn't going to finish or present something good. But I think my lack of confidence, if you will, stemmed from the fact that I do a lot of judging in Australia. I'm one of the judges that gets asked to judge at all of the major events we have here. So I'm very used to looking at good models, and I'm very used to assessing models and understanding what judges are looking for, because I am one of those judges. No, this is just a hobby for me, Moomalem. I do not do this as a profession. It is just all for fun. So yeah, so my judge hat was on in that episode, and I was just looking at the models and going, okay, well, if the criteria is who's done the coolest conversion or the coolest kit bash, it is not me. It is definitely not me. And so that was where my lens was sort of at with my thoughts on the episode. Do I get any sponsorships? Do you mean as a result of the show, or do you mean in general as a painter? Yeah, well, being a part of the show was fantastic. We obviously got the airbrush, and Redgrass Games sent me a light, which was awesome. I do have to do a Instagram post for that, because I told them I would, because this light is actually phenomenal. I knock back a lot of stuff from people. People always want to send me stuff, and they will usually ask me to do some promotional work, and my response always is, I'm happy for you to send me free stuff, but I'm not going to talk about your product unless I genuinely believe in it and am supportive of it. So that usually turns off most potential people, because I think they want a guaranteed promotional stuff out of sending free stuff. So yeah, most of the times I don't get free stuff or promotional stuff because people want a guaranteed ad. But some companies believe in their products that much that they do it anyway, and Redgrass believes in this lamp, and of course I had the added advantage of using it for 2 weeks. I can say 2 weeks now. Yes. This whole time I've been knowing that I make it to the final. I'm just sitting here going, well, we'll see what happens if I make it through. It was all lies. I knew I got through the whole time. Yeah, so the red grass palette I already had, and the lamp they sent, which was great because it's a really cool lamp. Go this one, and then we'll go this one, and then we'll go some crazy shit. It is expensive, right? And I can't be a judge on if it is worth the price, because the price will be dependent on how much money you've got to spend. But I do believe that it's an excellent product. It is the brightest light and the cleanest light that I've used. I've used a lot of jewelers' lights before, and they're very good. The one that I was using before this was a Tasklight Lumi. Very good lamp, but this one is definitely a cut above. So I can't say if it's worth the money, but I can tell you that it is an excellent product. So yeah, this episode was a really interesting one for me, because I don't do a lot of kit bashing like that anymore, because I don't really do a lot of Warhammer armies anymore. I used to do a lot. I used to do a lot of Warhammer armies when I was younger. But I haven't really done Warhammers in a while. And having a challenge where it was all about taking two models and fusing them together, 3 models I should say, definitely fell outside of my areas of expertise in this day and age, in the times that I'm doing the things that I'm doing now. But you don't ever lose your stuff, and I do a lot of conversions, and the part about this episode that I felt was really challenging for me was I wanted to... The models that I got were just awesome figures. That Void Dragon, I've seen it many times painted by many people, and I just thought to myself, I really want to paint that. Like, I just really want to paint that model. So they told me I had to make something that wasn't that model, and I was really upset. So I kind of... And I felt the same way about the Keeper of Secrets thing, whatever it was called. So yeah, I was in this position where I had 2 models that I was really excited to paint. And I, in the end, just decided to paint them basically the same. Or build them basically the same, because I enjoyed the models. Alexa, airbrush off. So yeah. But when I looked around the room, everyone else had really run in a really interesting direction. And I felt like I had missed an opportunity to do something crazy. And I felt like that was the reason that I was thinking, if I was a judge, my piece was the least ambitious from a conversion perspective. Notice I say ambitious, because the conversion work was absolutely primo, but it wasn't ambitious. I wasn't trying to do anything outlandish. Whereas Anastasia and Aaron just went absolutely off tap. Well, they didn't lend themselves to it, but there's still enough there that I could have done something a lot more outlandish than I did. As I said, I was just too impressed with the figures. I really loved the sculpts. Just wanted to paint those figures. So I found myself going into day 2 with what I thought was the weakest conversion. So, and then I also backed that up by trying to do beautiful instead of grotesque. Just crazy, really. Just crazy stuff from me to get into the final. To do something stupid like that. Cool question, Moomalem. You always have to judge things in the context of the other things that are there. especially in an event like this and in an event like Golden Demon. It is always contextual. So the other things that are on display will shape what is gold, what is silver, what is bronze. That can change depending on the type of competition. You know, a lot of European competitions use a thing called the open system, and that's basically if there is a piece that is deemed to be gold and there's another piece that's deemed to be gold, they both get gold. And so that type of judging, I think, encourages more creativity and a much more supportive type of community. And so that's one of the reasons why we've used that for Crimson and the other events that we have in Australia, because we're very much about supporting the community. But that's, even then, that's still contextual around all the other pieces that are at the event. So, yeah, so you have to look at the other pieces in the context of which is the best and judging them. And that's why I was thinking that my piece was the weakest, because I think comparatively it was the weakest. Johan, the great man, the goat man. I'm doing well. That's a good call out, Jimmy. Dave has special rules, unfortunately. It's a funny thing. Like, if you were to look at Dave's work and grade it all, you know, the majority of other pieces at the event would be like, okay, well, if all of Dave's are gold, so we kind of treat Dave a little bit differently. So that's Dave. One thing that they've done an amazing job of over the course of the airing of this first season has been improving based on feedback from people that are viewing. And one of the major themes has been the confusion about judging decisions. And I say this, I've said this in many of my streams before, and many times when I talk about it, I didn't feel much confusion when I was there. Most of the decisions seemed pretty straightforward and logical. You know, the Josh's piece throughout the whole day, Josh was really having a tough time, and everyone in the room knew he was having a tough time, and we were all feeling for him because we knew that it was going to be a real uphill battle. And so when the judging happened and Josh was called out, we were just like, yeah, unlucky, buddy. But in the comments, everyone's blowing up because Maxime's piece was a lot smaller, and the photography and the cinematography made it look kind of like Josh's piece really popped. And don't get me wrong, it was pretty good, but Maxime's was just a lot more clean, a lot more finished, a lot more atmospheric. So it just didn't at all surprise me, certainly. I can only speak for myself, of course. But as a judge, I was like, yep, I understand and agree with that decision. So yeah, I think when it came to this particular day, Carla's troll was such a big model. Such a huge model, and when I look back at the show, one of the things I think is it's evident the people that choose smaller models are doing better because they're getting more time on those figures. Sounds super obvious in hindsight, right? But I was always picking crazy big models because I wanted to paint crazy big models. So yeah, painting a smaller figure to a higher standard was a far superior option to painting a big model and having some areas that were not quite as finished. And so I think that was probably the one thing that held Carla back this episode, was it was just such a big toy. Hard to deliver that to a high standard. I've been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Yeah, Johan, I said that in my little video that I did. The losing of paint was such an irrelevant component to him losing that challenge, because it wasn't the fact that he lost the paint, it was the fact that he chose badly at the start and he didn't have a dark colour. My approach when I walked into there was, I said, I'm going to take the darkest possible colour I'm allowed to take and the lightest colour I'm allowed to take, and then I'll worry about the rest afterwards, because value contrast is such a huge part of miniature painting. So I took the maximum values that I had available, even if I didn't necessarily go all the way to those values. I wanted to have the option. Josh did not. Josh had mostly mid-tones and high value pieces, high value colours. And that is where he fell down. Yeah, the model selection, the judges picked the models that we painted last week, and then someone else picked the models that we painted this week, and that was, hey Match Fixer, that was a component to how everyone did, was sort of the model selection. But I think there was so much available with the figures that we got. Carla and I did the same thing. We took one model and kind of built off of that, whereas Aaron and Anastasia took the three pieces and created something new and unique. Like I was talking to my girlfriend about this episode, as we get up and watch it in the morning together when we get up before work. And yeah, I look back and I think I had an opportunity to do some cool stuff. You could have done. You didn't need to just use one model as a base. You could have done a four-legged critter. There was just a lot of different ways I could have approached what I got, and it's probably my, I would say, only regret from the show is that I didn't try something more outlandish in this episode. Match Fixer 3 years, you fucking loose cannon. Sharkwald, that is me. Yeah, Anastasia's was delightful, and I was sitting behind her for the entire experience, and just getting to see her pieces as they evolved, and it was really nice in this episode. They actually showed me sort of standing at her desk talking to her about her piece. Every episode, every challenge, I would, it's important to take breaks. I would go for a walk every half an hour and just look at people's models and talk to them about it and try to give them some positive reinforcement. And yeah, so it was nice to actually see just a little moment of that represented in the show, because it happened all the time. And hype training coming, get around it. I don't know what that means. And Anastasia's piece in this one was just stunning. I had a very strong feeling that she was going to win after day one, because it just was the most unique. It's not a tattoo. I think it's just makeup that she puts on each day. And yes, it is absolutely cool as balls. She is cool as balls. She's a cool chick. She's such a cool chick. I wish I was half as cool as she is. I'm just a big nerd. She's just swanning around, wearing her eye paint, just fucking been a legend. She's great. Hey, John. It did cut it out. Yeah, Andy. And again, I think they did a great job this episode of really showing what the conversations were like with the judges during painting. It was much more collaborative than directive. You know, they would say, "How do you feel about this?" And we would go, "Oh yeah, that's interesting," and then we would bounce back, and then it was much more a conversation than "you should do this." So when we had Andy and I talking about the robe, it was kind of something that we'd already mulled over, and I was already leaning that way, that it was just too red. So Andy sort of just reinforced what I'd already thought, and so that's why I took the advice and switched to a more cold red that probably tended more towards violet than anything else. Thank you, John. Yeah, I spoke about this the other night when I was painting more little toys. My goal was to get through the first couple of episodes and make it to the weekend. I would have felt happy with that, given the quality of artists and the quality of and the challenges that the experience came with. So to have made it to the final was an overachievement. And this is, thanks Cletus. This is actually what I'm working on now. I'll show it in more detail later. Who did I send this to? I think I sent it to someone. Hang on, maybe I'll just send it to myself on Discord, man, or something. I'll put it in. I've got a Discord that's called Big Deno Chats, and it's got me and Ben Layton in it, and that's it. So I'm just gonna put a picture in there so I can share it. All right, great work, Deno. Fantastic. You're an absolute superstar. Big Deno Chats. Big Deno's Time in the Sun. Copy media link. Okay, this is the diorama that I'm currently working on. So I started painting this the first episode of Miniature Masters, or maybe even a little bit after that, actually. So there is a painting event this weekend called Queensland Model Hobby Expo, and I am trying to get this done for that event. It's not going to be fully finished. There's definitely going to be elements that are not finalised, but I think it's going to be pretty good when it's all done. So this guy is the only one that's unpainted. So he's going to go, if I get him done, we're good to go. He's actually an integral part of the piece though, so if I don't get him done, I probably won't take it. But we should be fine. I've got a couple of hours tonight and a few hours tomorrow. Sweet. Yeah, look, if you were to pick one attribute of mine, did Sebastian Miniatures ask me a question? Oh, sorry, did you ask me a question? No. Yeah, I am probably, and I say this absolutely respectfully to myself, I'm probably the worst painter on the show. um, but I'm definitely the quickest. So anytime the challenge leans into paint something in a short time frame, it is in my wheelhouse, and I excel in that circumstance. So real time, yeah, we actually filmed it all over 2 weeks. Every episode was after the one day after another, and it was relentless and it was high pressure. The filming started. We got picked up from our hotel at about 7, and then we would get to the set, and then we would paint for uh, 8 hours, but the filming would take about 12, 14 hours. We usually wouldn't get back to our hotel until between 8 to 9. So that was quite a lot of pressure and intensity. And I said this, you also compound that with unfamiliar equipment, unfamiliar chairs. I'm sure you can tell the chairs are fucking awful. And yeah, so it was exhausting. Most nights we would spend a bit of time together down in the lobby. We had dinner at the studio. They had catered dinner for us most nights. So some nights we popped it in the fridge and had it the next day for lunch. But it was usually pretty good. So, but sometimes yeah, we'd go out and grab a burger or something afterwards from the local burger joint, which was called Bastard Burgers. But yeah, every single day of filming. We started, the first day's filming was a Tuesday. We went till Friday. Then we had a weekend, and we did heaps of fun stuff on the weekend. I can tell you more if you want. And then the next week was 6 days back to back, Monday through to Saturday. And Saturday, the filming finished at 9 o'clock on the last day, and then we all went out for dinner, and we booked a restaurant for like, I don't know, 9:30 or something. We all went out for an Indian restaurant. Everyone, the cast and the crew, everyone was there for the dinner on the last night after the final episode. It was lovely. Sebastian, I think Ice Yellow was also off limits. I think Deck Tan was about where we got as our lowest value, and I think a Midnight Blue was the darkest shade that we were able to use. So it was a challenge, but keep in mind that you were able to do a black and white light value map at the start. So if you were good at doing that, you didn't really need those other colours. You could lean into that using those. All contestants did absolutely stay there the whole time. We were required to as a part of our contract. All of our flights were booked for that Sunday. So we all went out for dinner that night and had a lovely night, and then everyone was up at, I think Johan picked us up at 5:50 that morning to go to the airport for our flights out, because Umea doesn't do any international flights, so we all had to fly to Stockholm. Amalia, of course, had a 40-minute flight to get back to Oslo. I had a 40-hour flight to get anywhere near Brisbane. Fucking wild, hey, Johan? Did I enjoy my time in Sweden? I did. It's a beautiful place. Umea in particular is lovely. I've done a fair bit of international travel. I've been really lucky with traveling and some of the places I've been. And Umea actually reminded me of a town that I love, which is called Stirling. It's in Scotland, and it's about an hour north of Edinburgh, and it's kind of like a smaller town, but it just had this really cool vibe. And so, you just walk around Stirling and there's just these beautiful old buildings and cool little restaurants, and, it was just a really nice place. And Umea just reminded me of that vibe in a big way. So yeah, it was great. Great place to spend 2 weeks of my life. And we did get to do a lot of great stuff on the weekend. Obviously, the contestants who were eliminated got to do a bit more exploring and, spend a bit more time in the city and what have you. The poor three of us that got through to the final, I can definitely tell you there was some jealousy, because the other contestants would send us pictures of them just at coffee shops and cafes, just eating some cakes and just relaxing and like swanning about, getting out of bed at 9 a.m. Ridiculous behaviour from them. And of course the eliminated contestants, and they had a great time. So the eliminated contestants made a pact with each other that whoever got knocked out, the next day was their day. Everyone else would do whatever they wanted. And so I think they went to the library and art gallery with Maxime for his day. I'm not sure what they did to Carla's, for Carla's. I'll have to ask her. And Amalia just wanted to go visit a hobby shop and buy some Warhammer so she could paint some Warhammer. So yeah, it was great. It was really great. I'm so happy that I've got to say that I make it to the final. That finally I can talk about making it to the final. What an absolute delight that is. Yeah, my goal was to get to the weekend. I figured if I got to the weekend, I bought some board games to play. If I got knocked out, I'd have a couple of nice days of board games, and then there'd be other people would go hang out and do some painting or whatever. Thought that'll be fine. That'll feel worthwhile. And yeah, Natalia was actually like almost looking forward to not getting through because of how bad the chairs were and how it's so different. The environment was so different to how all of us normally paint. And it's really hard to describe the impact that had on our works. I think it actually probably benefited me a little bit because of the fact that I'm so adaptable. Aaron as well, I think, really handled it. Actually, I think the 3 people that got through to the end were the 3 people that handled that situation the best. Just experience and just being able to handle that type of challenge. We'll see. So I've said this a couple of times. I'm not sure if they will do another season. I hope they do. I think they've done an amazing job, and I've loved every second, and I know what the experience was like for me. So I hope everyone gets to experience. Well, obviously not everyone will, but as many people as possible get to experience what I did, which was just a beautiful time in a beautiful country with beautiful people. But I'm sure they've got metrics around, how many numbers they wanted to hit watching the show, and what the feedback's been like on the show. And yeah, it was pretty upsetting the way that some people took the feedback, or took aim at some of the artists and took aim at the judging. And Andy Borja and Lucas and Emil were just absolutely doing their best, giving their best. As someone who is a judge in competitions, it's just no judge goes out there to do a bad job. So it's upsetting to see the way that some of those people were treated. And hey, Emil addressed that, did a great job, showed his care and respect for the people that were involved, and yeah, it was great. I've got nothing but love for this experience and what I've been able to achieve. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be there. I actually literally said to Emil today that I would have paid $10,000 for this experience, mate. Not just give me a chance to win 10,000. I would have paid you $10,000 to let me come and do this. It was that fun, and it was that cool. How will I blend these colours, Moomalen? It's going to be some sweet airbrushing, because that is how I do everything. Chuck Sprays is the name of my airbrush, because it does exactly that. It chucks sprays of paint. And the Jan, the Swedish food, yeah, that's a great question. So I had some of the best Indian and the best Japanese I've ever had in Sweden. There was a restaurant that we went to that was Indian. One night, Andy, Borja, me, and Aaron. I can't remember what night it was. I think it might have been after this episode actually, or maybe it was the night after Kit Bashing, because we had a bit of extra time. Everyone, was doing their thing, and Aaron was like, "Oh, I feel like Indian. Apparently, there's a good Indian place." I was like, "Oh yeah, I could be down for Indian." And Borja and Andy were in the vicinity. They're like, "Yeah, we'll come to Indian." So the four of us just went to Indian together, and Borja smashed out about 5 beers, the absolute loose cannon. And yeah, we had a beautiful Indian, absolutely delightful. We went to an Italian restaurant that was also lovely, and then we went to a ramen restaurant. There was a ramen place just near us that was absolutely delectable. We didn't eat a lot of traditional Swedish food. I don't really know what traditional Swedish food looks like or smells like or tastes like. I don't think I had any of it. But the food was delicious. Absolutely delicious. Chairs would be great. The reason they didn't have proper chairs is because it would have obstructed the camera shots. So they elected not to. And that's some bullshit. I didn't try Surströmming, but I have been to Sweden before. I've been to all the Nordic countries now. Oh, actually, I haven't been to Greenland, if that counts. So, yeah, I have tried a lot of Swedish food before, but this was not the trip for me. So if you're new to my style of painting and what I like to do, I have a way that I like to describe it. And it's over contrast and then come back. I say over contrast and under deliver, but yeah. So what I try to do is take all of my values up extremely high. So you can see we've got a very big gap from top to bottom, from the darkest values down here up to the lightest. Because what the airbrush will do is it will naturally bring the lightest colours down towards the mid-tone, because I'm going to spray it with sort of a mid-tone, and then it will bring the darkest colours up towards that mid-tone. So you actually get a reduction in the overall contrast when you use an airbrush to harmonise and glaze. So by using a much higher value and having bigger shifts, it still gives you lots of value contrast even after you do that. So that's why it probably looks a little bit over contrasted right now, and also looks very rough. But the other thing that the airbrush does, it will actually soften and smooth these transitions, which means I can do something really, really quickly, and then because the airbrush makes me look like a good painter, it all works. The studio was actually, it wasn't massive. I'm sure you can tell from the shots that it wasn't a huge studio, but it was big enough. We all had enough space to do our thing and what have you. But I would be surprised if they would change the studio, the set, they'll obviously make some little upgrades if they do a second season, but look, airbrushing in general is a trial and error thing. You have to do those fuck ups before you can learn how to not do that. Because airbrushing there's no tactile response. There's no feedback that you get when you're using a brush. You know, you feel what the brush is doing through your hand, through your fingers, and the bristles. You know, you get that tactile feedback. You get nothing from an airbrush. You just watch it happen, then all of a sudden, oh fuck, it's too much. You can't do anything about that. The only way to learn is to just do it and practice. Thank you, Sebastian. I do definitely agree with you that I'm a good painter. I thank you for that. I'm not a great painter, but that's okay. I'm very comfortable with where I sit in the echelon of painters in the world. Because as I said, I doubt there's many people that are as fast as me. And that is my gift that I give to the world. It's teaching people how to paint faster and gooder. Noise, yep. Even the trigger, like you don't know how much to pull the trigger back because there's no you don't get any feedback. So the only way to get better at airbrushing is to just do it and to fuck up. And that's the only rule. Once you've done that, you'll be sweet. Okay, so now we're going to do some airbrushing, some little tweaking with my airbrush. Alexa, airbrush on. Alexa. Ooh, don't be like that to me, Alexa. Thank you, Sebastian. Thanks, Sharkwald. Exactly the same process, Willhammer. This is how I paint. This is what I do. I just do this, and we'll show you how it works. So we're going to go for like a light mid-tone now. So we're going to go for like an orangey colour. We've got this medium orange. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this dead red. So this is a pinky sort of colour. So we're going to have an orangey pinky mix. And we'll see how that looks. Probably want a little bit more pink. Yeah, there we go. So this is a mid-tone, alright? Now we'll test the strength of the colour. That's probably a bit too strong for me, so I'm just going to add a little bit more thinner. Bit of backflow. Now at this stage I don't want a fine detailed brush. I'm not using my super fine one because this you're better off with a larger spray. And so, as I said, what you're seeing happen in real time is all of the light colours coming down and all of the dark colours coming up. So, if you've never heard of the value scale before, just imagine that you can put every colour on a scale of light to dark. Right, so the lightest colour, we call it a 10 on the value scale, is obviously white. Alright, so if we've got a white on the value scale, it's a 10. And then we've got black, which is the darkest colour, it's a 0. In mid-tone, it sits around a 5. It doesn't matter what colour it is. It could be a blue, it could be a green, it could be a purple. But if it's a mid-tone, it'll probably sit somewhere around this value range of 5. So then, if you add a lighter colour to something, we might go to a 7. If you add a darker colour, we might go to a 3. And value contrast is all about, it's when people say you need more contrast, they're usually talking about value contrast and creating more light and dark shadows. So if you imagine that dark is 10 and light is 10 and dark is 0, when you airbrush a color, that's a 5. All you're doing is bringing those dark ones up and the light ones down, bringing it back to 5, because eventually, if you just keep spraying enough layers, even if they're dilute layers, it'll turn into that color. So you're basically trying to do a pass over it, just like you're doing a filter in Photoshop. So yeah, so now we've softened and smoothed all of my shit rough highlighting, and it actually looks way better. So now we're going to do some red, and in this instance I like to use contrast paints. So contrast paints are extremely saturated. Saturation is a different thing to value, by the way. So these are super intense colors, and if we add some of these into the airbrush, this is another form of filter, but this will do less of that adjusting of value and more adjusting saturation. It'll increase or decrease saturation. So if we look here, this lower portion here has become a bit grayed out. So I'm just going to try, we'll just do a quick test, yeah. So we just add a little bit of extra saturation. So you can do this with an ink. You don't have to do this with a contrast paint. You can do it with a paint, but the difference is that the inks that they're just slightly transparent, whereas a paint is more opaque. So by using a transparent color here, you're doing, as I said, less adjusting of value and more adjusting of saturation, which is what we're looking to tweak about here. So this is just on an hour. And I've been jibber jabbering a lot. And that's how I paint. And that's how I'm a quick motherfucker, because I just do that. And if you watch the way that I paint with a brush and no airbrush, it's actually exactly the same. I do this really high value thing, and then I bring it back by doing a glaze or a wash. And it's crazy. 7 hours to go. Good luck. Give me 3. That's one thing they haven't showed very well. I was finished early every time. Every time. Alexa, airbrush off. Okay, let's do some gold. Always believe in your gold. Gold. What are you doing up, Sebastian? Isn't it night time for you? Isn't it like 3 a.m.? Shouldn't you be in bed? Shouldn't you be sleeping? Come on, Mini Mansa. Look after yourself, son. Look after your body. One other important thing. Yeah, okay, that's not too bad. One other important thing about this process, and Sebastian actually called it out already, it's always important to not gauge the result. Sorry, mate. Of a piece of a volume that you've done without the context of the other volumes around it. So if I'm trying to explain a lot of what I'm doing right now because I'm sure we've got new people that haven't been here before. But the term volume is, of course, just any element. So we could be talking skin, we could be talking these little metal bits. But you really can't judge how effective something is in terms of its value contrast, in terms of its saturation, without everything else around it, because light doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know, it doesn't look right until you have everything else around it. So there's a few ways that you can do this in miniature painting anyway with this. Like the way that oil painters and stuff do it is they block in all of their big colours first, and they block in everything so they have a clear understanding of the actual overall piece and what it's going to look like. And this is what Alfonso was talking about in episode 2 with his sketching. He sketches out this very quick, rough map of what everything's going to look like. And once you've got that map, it's very easy to make changes and adjust and adapt what you're doing. So the reason I got in trouble in the show is because I didn't do that in the challenge. I did my process, which is do the skin and then add all the other bits. And that's so I can do really quick work to make the skin look good. Oh, before you go, was there something I would have said to make your heart beat better? This is my new goat. Take note, Sebastian, by the way. This is the new goat. This has replaced pistachio. Get it in and around your mouth. So non-metallic metal, how do I approach that? I did some good non-metallic metal in the show. I did some pretty good stuff on that Usharan, on that ghoul guy. Yeah, Parasite Brown, mate. Get it in and around your mouth. The goat. And full credit to Andy Wardle, because he is the one who put me onto it. NMM's so weird. It's such a weird thing to try and explain. Do you want me to try and explain it, or is that too much for tonight? Yeah. It took me probably 2 years. Okay. I'll try and break down the way that I think about NMM. Oh, good. Oh, look at that. Dragon's Blood. Is that an AK? Where's that from? Okay, so if you've never painted non-metallic metal before, it feels quite daunting, and I really struggled with it a lot early on. But the light bulb moment for me was basically actually understanding what was happening. And so when I say that, what I mean is why does light react this way in a certain thing. And I'll draw a little picture for you on here. I do some pictures on this fucking thing sometimes. I'm trying to explain stuff. But we have this thing that happens with light when it's on a highly reflective surface. And the light reflection changes based on the viewer, right? So let's say we've got a shoulder pad here. We as the viewer are standing over here, Right, so here's our little eyeballs. Hello, it's me looking at this dude. Light, wherever it's coming from, is going to come here and it's going to bounce at a 90-degree angle from where we are as a viewer. So you basically draw in your head a little imaginary map of here's the light source. Yay. Where do I want my viewing angle to be? Where do I want the person to be standing in terms of this composition? And when you answer that question, that will usually then dictate where all of your stuff goes. And here is a fine example of how this is different to a normal highlight, because in a normal volume, let's say you've got, you know, a muscle or whatever, make it a muscle, and the light's coming from above, you naturally gravitate towards doing a highlight on top, because that is how the light would interact with that surface. But when you have a reflective surface, a metallic surface, you instead tend to change that to be further down to be in line with the viewer's eye line. It's this really different way of approaching it. So here, if I was highlighting this normally, we've got a light source on the top left, by the way. If I was highlighting this surface normally, I'd probably have highlights along the top. Hey ZWEX, and then change a few little things. But here, I'm going to do all of my highlights focused on this area, because this is where the light is coming, and so we're going to see this go boing boing straight out to us. I don't know if that's helpful, but that was the thing that helped me visualize what I was actually trying to do, is just imagine where I'm standing as a viewer on this piece, and then how's the light going to interact differently. Everyone should thank ZWEX. ZWEX is the person responsible for me applying for Miniature Masters. I was not even considering it. And ZWEX posted in the King of Death Discord and said, Tenno would be pretty good for this. He's a funny guy. Let's get Tenno on the show. Hey Calypso. I have actually done quite a few tutorials on my YouTube, believe it or not. I'll link you my favourite ones. So, before you go, was there a way you made a heartbeat better? Hang on, where are these? Come on, get your head in the game, Dano. Get your head in the game. Come on, son. There it is. Get shareable link. Boom! I did quite a few tutorials early on with my YouTube, and so if you want to see sort of some of my older stuff, you can go and see that. But that tutorial series that I've just linked there is probably my pièce de résistance of content. It's the best thing I've ever created on the internet. Because I spoke to the guys involved in I do look different with short hair. I spoke to the guys, because I'm a massive board game buff and I play board games all the time. And so I was super keen about Oathsworn, and it was coming out pretty soon, and I messaged the guys. I was like, oh, hey guys, I've got a really shitty little YouTube channel. Can I have the toys early so I can do some tutorials? I don't normally do that. And between us, the reason I did it was so I could get my toys earlier. I was thinking, man, if I get them to send me the thing, they'll send me the whole game early, and I'll get to play the game soon. That was my logic behind why I sent that message, because I really wanted to get the game. Anyway, they sent me the models. They didn't send me the game, so it backfired. But I thought, yeah, I really want to try and do something cool. So I put together a series that I don't think too many people have done similar, where rather than focusing on, hey, this is how you paint XYZ model, which is what a lot of tutorial series do, like Sarastro does, here's how you paint this model and shows his process. I try to teach concepts. I try to teach, well, this is why we paint human skin in this way, and this is how you think about human skin. And then I do the same with stone and metal and foliage and leather, hair, all these things. So basically I tried to give a foundation of miniature painting skills that I thought would be helpful for everyone. It's pretty great. Like, I think it's great, but it didn't land all that well at the time with the Oathsworn community. Most people were not impressed with the result because they just wanted, here is how you paint with 3 colours and a wash, type of thing. They just wanted an easy way to paint their toys. And here's me showing off, I wouldn't say super advanced techniques, but definitely more methodology than probably people wanted. So it just didn't land all that well, unfortunately. But that is okay, because it has found new life. Mostly from display painters, I think, have really enjoyed that series. But anyway, to answer your question, Calypso, I don't do a lot of tutorials or stuff now, or teaching or Patreons or anything like that, and I'll explain why, because I think it's a really important insight into my my hobby. Match Fixer, yeah, I have watched a few bits and bobs, and I didn't get it, and I'm thinking maybe that's okay, but maybe we'll try again soon. We'll see if another one strikes my fancy, maybe another playthrough. Yeah, so I have a full-time job. I work a full week, and it's pretty demanding, and I have been doing this role in this job for 20 years, and my job is coaching and supporting, problem solving, stuff like that. And I'm pretty good at my job. And the hobby has always been a thing that has brought me huge joy in my life, whether that's miniatures, gaming. It's always just been a central focus of my life. My girlfriend thinks it's an autistic special interest, and she's probably not wrong. Hyperfixation, as it were. But the thing about doing tutorials, doing Patreon, is it turns this wonderful thing that has been a constant in my life since I was 13 years old into a job, into work, and even it comes across for me in commissions as well. Like when I get asked to do commissions, even if it's a commission for a model that I like, I really struggle sometimes doing them. I really struggle because I just want to paint my toys. I just want to be here painting toys and being creative and be inspired and do something when I feel like it. And some nights I don't feel like painting, and that's okay. Some nights I feel like playing games, so I just play games for 2 weeks straight. Having that be the thing that motivates me, rather than turning into a business, turning into a thing, it doesn't interest me. I don't ever want it to be a job. My media presence doesn't affect work. Most people don't know because it's such a niche hobby. They don't really know too much about it. There's a few people at work that know. Of course, I had to tell people at work about Miniature Masters, so that was fun. But they've all been super supportive and wonderful. They're wonderful people. I really love my job. I love the people I work with and what I do. Yeah, there is something soothing about sitting down and painting miniatures, and I had a really tough time a few years ago, and the miniature painting was there, and it's always been there, no matter what's going on in my life. And so I have this fierce protectiveness over the experience that I have when I paint. And I think that actually comes across a fair bit in the show as well, because I haven't ever looked stressed, I don't think, in the show. Even in the last episode, I was never stressed. I just was doing something that was not as good as what everyone else was doing at the time, I thought. Because the whole time that I was there, hey, Lecter's Kitchen, hello, thank you for the raid. The whole time I was there, it was just a lovely opportunity to paint models. And like, how often do you get to take 2 weeks off work, 3 weeks off work, and sit down and paint toys with other people in a crazy environment in another country, and have all the other ancillary stuff going on as well. Hello everyone, I'm Deno, Big Deno. You can follow me on Instagram if you want. It's not very regular. You can follow me on here if you want. It's not very regular. You can follow me on YouTube if you want. That's a bit more regular, but mostly of me playing games. But if you haven't seen me before, this is what I do. I do crazy big dioramas, and here's my first one that I did that was actually really good. Yes! Camelot! All of the models in that diorama are 75mm. They are very big. They're very, very big. If you go back far enough on my Instagram, there's some funny pictures. I actually usually do a lot of my planning for these dioramas on Twitch, and I will just draw little weird pictures like I've done here. Yeah, here's another one I've done. This one's got cool music. But I don't do an awful lot of planning. I think the planning that I do tends to be just about the composition of the models. Because you're doing so many models at the same time, you really need to be considered in how you position them on a base so that they each are visible and evident enough in the composition. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out where I think they'll go, and then I build the models, and then I usually change everything because you learn things about the size. You can only do your best guess until you actually build the models and stuff. That's Neon Knights. Here's the last one I did. This is I don't think any of the others got music. This is the most recent one. I finished this one about 7 months ago. There might be too much music on this, sorry. How cool is that, Hellgrat? I'm in that show. Yes. Hello, Tatley. So there you go. That's what I do. I do big, crazy dioramas and stupid projects like that. Sometimes I paint small stuff. But I like doing big, outlandish projects. And yeah, Captain Dead Meat, thank you. It is a piece I'm very proud of. I started this one about 4 weeks ago, and this is where this one's at right now. And yeah, I agree very, very much, Captain Dead Meat, about this hobby just being something that's very relaxing and enjoyable. So yeah, to go back to the original question that I was asked, I don't do a lot of tutorials because I don't want this to feel like work. I just want it to feel like my hobby and my relaxing thing. But sometimes I get really motivated about doing a tutorial or a thing, and when I'm excited about doing it, it's great. It's great. I think it meshed okay with it. I think it meshed okay with the show. I think it actually helped the show. I think it helped the show find its voice a little bit. Not just me, of course, all the other artists as well, but we very much supported each other and brought everyone into the hobby that we wanted to have, um, which is one where we supported each other. Here's my Clean Desk Award, by the way. It's actually slightly broken. It broke on the way over, but they 3D printed a bucket and a little cleaning bottle and a broom, and the broom broke, so that's a shame. But there was a broom glued here. I'm going to do a post about this tomorrow because there was three people that do not get any kudos from anyone at all that's watching the show. Thank you, Bob. There's no one watching the show knows about this, but there was three people that built the set, but also were there every episode. We would go and have our 8 hours of painting, and then they would get us present our models, and then we would all head to dinner. But in between that, there was these three wonderful people who would come in and clean the room. It's just like classic MasterChef, right? They need to have the kitchen benches be totally clean. Well, that was all a lie. Particularly Maxime, he was never clean. But I was always finished early. So I was always looking for things to do. There would be 30 or 40 paints on some people's desk. They would come in and they would put all the paints back, one after another, back in the right spots. And they would refill our water jugs and they would wipe down the desk, and they would do this every night. And the very first day, I introduced myself. Their names are Emma, Nora, and Franz, by the way. I made a point of getting to know everyone as much as I possibly could, and speaking to them, and finding out about them and why they were there and what their passions were and all that sort of stuff, because I think that's really important. My dad always taught me that you don't judge a man by how he treats his superiors. You judge him by how he treats his, subordinates is not the right word in this instance, but everyone is important and valued and deserving and deserves to be respected and appreciated. So I make a point of trying to do that with everyone. So yeah, I took time out to chat to them, and we had this running gag that they would come to my desk and they would have nothing to do because I would have finished the challenge with an hour to go. And so I thought, I'll just help you out a bit. I'll clean my desk. And I'm clean anyway. Like, I have an organised space. But yeah, so they would come to my desk and they'd have nothing to do. So I was always laughing. I'd ask them, who had the cleanest desk today, guys? And they would say, you did, yeah, you did. It was really great because they had a lot of time to kill during things. Like, every now and then they get asked to build something, build us a table that we can use to display this or X, Y, Z. But usually they would just be hanging around. So they started getting into mini painting. So they started painting some toys, and they've got some cool little stuff. And they would come down during filming and check out what we were working on, and talk to us about the project. And they would be the ones who would grab our snacks for the trailer and everything. So they were just cool people, right? And so they 3D printed these little things, and asked if they could, if Emil and Lucas could give me this award. So it was my favourite moment of the whole thing, by far. Because they're cool people. So there you go. That's the story behind the Cleanest Desk. So I'm going to do a post with I think I've got a picture of them. I didn't get a picture with them and me holding the trophy, which I'm actually really angry at myself for. But I'm confident I've got a picture of them that I can post, and I'm going to write up a post about it and explain that little story. And yeah. So there you go. That's why I won Cleanest Desk Award and the context behind it. And yeah, we've got to make sure we appreciate everyone that was involved in the show. There was a crew of about 12 people, believe it or not. I did feel exactly that way, and I think I even said, "Oh, it doesn't matter what happens now. I've already won." That's exactly how I felt. Oh, Moomalem. Poof. Poof. How do you get into KDM? Oh, that's a big question. All right. KDM is a behemoth. It's a juggernaut. But there is an entry point, which is the obvious entry point, which is the core game. And I would suggest that is the only thing you should buy for Kingdom Death at all for a long, long, long time. The amount of content in Kingdom Death is outrageous. The core box comes with 8 monsters and huge amount of survivor models and a fully complete experience. I would not recommend you buy anything else until you have played the game and figured out if it's going to fit for you. It doesn't fit for everyone. It's a horror sort of game set in a very punishing world, and it will definitely test you at times. So if you get through the journey of playing the core game and finding the experience one that resonates with you, then there's other options that you can pursue after that. The Gambler's Chest is one, but it depends how big you want to go with your investment into the game. If you just want to maybe expand a little bit, some of the original or even the newer expansions are really great at expanding the game. So the next one I would recommend is the Frog Dog expansion. So the Frog Dog is a god-awful model, but it's a great expansion. And here's the thing about the game. So I've played a lot of this game. I've played so much. Thanks, Lecter's Kitchen. Thanks for the raid. Everyone go follow Lecter's Kitchen. I'm so bad at streaming, hey? I'm so bad at doing this. The reason why Frog Dog is great, and where a lot of my methodology comes from, is that most people will only interact with the game in the early Lantern years. And so the early Lantern years is where you fight level 1 node monsters and the sort of weaker monsters. So buying content that gives you more options for that time frame in the game is the correct approach. So once you've played through the game, decided you want some more, tried a few little expansions, and you've gone, yep, this is a game for me, there's a lot that you can go into. My friend Brahm Mithra does a lot of Kingdom Death videos, and he's done some rankings videos where he and I actually went and ranked all of the expansions for the game. So that was a good way to go if you don't have unlimited money. If you have unlimited money, buy everything. It's the best game ever. But most people aren't in that situation, so I would instead recommend a piecemeal approach. I'm very, very, very close to starting a new campaign, actually, over on my YouTube. So that will be fun. Alright, so again, as I said at the start, we're going for the old over contrast and then bring back down. Fen is the Kingdom Death GOAT. Fen is the greatest. I've been following Fen on Patreon for 6 years. Superstar. It's fun. It's a fun game, and when I stream it, I try and involve people that are watching, and we make decisions together. Sometimes it's great. This figure comes from Aradia Miniatures, and my whole diorama, which I'm going to show off in a second before I finish up. The whole diorama is actually filled with Aradia Miniatures. So this range is, hey Net Diver. This range is all very heavily inspired by Ancient Lizardmen figures. I'm doing a lot of promotion tonight. I didn't mean to do this, but anyway, I did a little interview with Dave Taylor. It was actually yesterday. I actually did it yesterday morning because he's in the States. And Dave Taylor is like mini painting royalty. He's former editor of White Dwarf in Australia and the producer of the Art of series. Really, really amazing guy. Who I've actually known for a long time as well, because he was working at Games Workshop here while I was working for Games Workshop here as well. Anyway, I talked about my inspirations for the dioramas and for why I do stuff. And this particular diorama is inspired by this piece that Mike McVeigh did back in, I reckon, White Dwarf, 210-ish, somewhere around there. I reckon I would have seen it for the first time. And it was a Lustrian temple with all lizardmen guys being invaded by some, like, Astalians, the conquistador type guys. And the thing about my whole hobby, as I said, is it's all about doing stuff that makes me happy. And one of the things that inspires me is all the stuff that I saw when I was a kid, all the things that I looked back then and I was like, oh my god, that's amazing, just that's the coolest thing ever. And at the time I was a complete nuffy and had absolutely no painting capabilities or skills, or wouldn't have even known how to make a diorama or do anything. So it seemed so unattainable. And then I got older and I started getting into the hobby a lot more, and I painted and I played and I did all these things. But I reached this moment where I was like, actually, I have got money now. I can buy things. And I actually do know how to paint now. So maybe I can do some things that I was heavily inspired by. The first iteration of that was I bought all these Necromunda models. Necromunda's my favourite game. And I bought basically every Necromunda model I could find, all the original ones. So that was nice. And then I painted them. But anyway, so yeah, all of my dioramas stem from the fact that I was heavily inspired by model train kits and crazy big projects. And I've just been lapping that up ever since. So when I had the chance to try and do something like that for myself, I just gave it a crack. And it was very fun and very challenging and very complex. And so it really appealed to me, and that's where we've found ourselves now after about 6 or 7 years of doing these dioramas. I generally do about one of these big ones a year. I did 2 in 1 year. That probably won't happen again. Yeah, this one is that the Hyperborea one was Aradia and Chimera. It was a combination of those two. This one is the first full Aradia, I think. Done a Carol Rudick one. I don't know, mate. There's so many. They all blur together, don't they? Okay, so you can see now the over-contrasted effect there of the gold. And what we might do is just show off how to make that actually look good. Yeah, Graveyard is Chimera also. So this is now a bounce light. So when you have metal, you do have lights that reflect from below. You know it, Sebastian. You know it. You know it. And you need to have some little bouncy lights that just help sell the illusion that there's objects around. But yeah, so what we do now is we take this and we add saturation, exactly the same way as I did before. So we're going to take Nazdreg Yellow, which is a contrast paint, and I'm actually putting a little Agarose Dunes in there to make it a little browner, a little more worn. And we just mix those two together. We dilute the colour a little bit. And we just go straight over that Bobby Dazzler with this yellow, and what do you know? It looks like gold. Always believe in gold, gold. You're indestructible. Always believe in gold, gold. It is like magic, isn't it? Indeed, yes, indeed, Sebastian. That's a great call out. So again, I'll just repeat what I said. I'm not the best painter, but I've got to be pretty close to the fastest. And that's an accolade that I'm happy with. So after all of this is finished, what I'll do then is I'll use the airbrush to add some elements of environmental lighting. Hello, Julian Cusses. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Hello, Alex Paints Tiny Things. Greetings to you from Brisbane. Yeah, so we do some environmental lighting at the end, and that'll sort of harmonise and bring everything together, which is always nice. Now we're going to do some quick fire stuff, because we've still got about half an hour. I only stream for 2 hours. I'm too old to go for any longer than that. I'm too old. So this one is going to be a trick that I learned from Kirill Kanaev. Kirill Kanaev. So he did a video series with a company called Miniature Mentor. That's taken it back. This is back in the time before YouTube. And people would buy these downloadables tutorials from Miniature Mentor. And they've done quite a few. They did one with Mark Maskelins. They did one with Alfonso Giraldez. A lot of the very famous miniature painters from early Golden Demon days were really, really good. So yeah, this Miniature Mentor series was just normal tutorials, but in a format of not being on YouTube. It came out before not before YouTube was a thing, but certainly like it hadn't hit peak popularity. I didn't see the. Oh no, I did see the bust that PhD painted. Yeah, the dots didn't read right for me, which is why I didn't comment on it. The dots were okay, but they didn't quite feel spot on. Anyway, Kirill basically says the best way to do wood grain is to just paint texture like this with white, and then do some glazes of an ink, like this one that's called Inktense Wood. And so that's how I've done wood forever, and it works very, very fine. And there you go. Here it is, Inktense Wood. And he really likes the satiny finish. I don't like the satiny finish as much, so I tend to do some varnishing afterwards, but there you go. So we'll just do a couple of those, and then I'll add some green, maybe as well, so we get this wood effect. Bobby Dazzler, job done. Where's me Cygor Brown? There you are. Yeah, the Scale 75 inks are the best inks on the market, definitely. In my experience, there's definitely a lot of other good inks out there. I see a lot of people using the Liquitex inks. I don't use Liquitex inks personally, but I'm sure they're fine. But the Scale 75 just have this really nice finish, really powerful saturation. The Violet, Inktense Violet is a fucking banger. Like, it is so potent. You've actually got to be careful with how you use it because it's so potent. Someone said something just before. NetDiver. Yeah, the show has definitely brought more people than I'm accustomed to. So I've tried to be as welcoming and explanatory as I can be. But my focus will remain, and it will remain for a long time, in having a wonderful time painting my toys. So hopefully people will vibe with that content, and if they don't, that's okay. I'm sure they will find someone else who does wonderful content that will suit them better. I highly recommend AC Miniatures and Amalia's Miniatures, who both stream on Twitch. I highly recommend Merak Minis, who posts on YouTube and on her channel and on her webpage. I highly recommend Josh. Yes, Nat was a dirty thief who stole all of my great work from the Psychology of Miniature Painting. She stole it all and claimed credit for it, but she did ask. Bob, so right now it's 5:30 for you, and this is 6 to 7 p.m. to me, but I also do a Sunday morning stream, which will probably be your mid-afternoon. That stream is at about 11 hours from now is when it starts, but it starts on a Sunday, which will be Saturday afternoon your time, would be my guess. Yep. Every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. I kick on for a painting stream. A nice, relaxing way to start my Sundays. I don't normally stream as much as I have done this week. I'm just really trying to get this diorama finished, and I'm really excited to talk about Miniature Masters because I have been sitting on that fucking show for 4 months. We filmed it in April. I got back from it, and I'm buzzing to tell everyone I made it to the final. Woo! Can't tell anyone. Cannot tell a soul. Nobody in the miniature hobby in Australia, literally nobody. I might have actually mentioned to Dave that I was on the show. No, Natalia mentioned it to Dave that I was on the show. No one knew. I didn't tell anyone. No one had any clue. So when the announcement finally came out, which was middle of... When was it? The middle of June? No, middle of July. It was mid-July when it was announced. Everyone was very surprised. But I've been sitting there, not being able to talk about it the whole time. Absolutely aggravating. I think in the next episode, this isn't a spoiler, so don't worry, but I think in the next episode we had a snowstorm in Umia. So this is like late April, and it was quite out of character to apparently to have a snowstorm around this time. So they, so I think they filmed me running outside in it because I've never, I've seen snow, and I have had snow before, but I'd never seen it quite like this. I was in Germany a few years ago, 2009. And I saw snow, played in snow. But it'd been probably 15 years. So yeah, they got a video of me running out there going, what the fuck is this? We did have a wonderful time, yes. And I hope it's come across. I feel like it has. I feel like the editing's done a great job of showcasing the group that we had, the spirit that we had, and our desire for everyone to enjoy the hobby as much as we do. You know, to enjoy the craft, the art. Everyone sort of sees the hobby in a different way, which is part of the most wonderful thing about the show. You know, Carla's interpretation of the hobby and art is so very different to mine because of the path she took to get there. I'm a board game, war game boffin that has just played this sort of stuff for his whole life, and I've diverted into miniature painting, but I still come from a Warhammer background. So it's the stuff that I like to do, the stuff that I make, is usually very Warhammer vibes, whereas the stuff that her and Anastasia do is just art. You know, I don't have any better way to describe it. They create stories and atmosphere and vision more than I've ever done. So there you go. Slangers, you legend. Was there something I learned during the show that I've since incorporated in my painting? What a great question. What a great question. Look, it probably comes across in the show. I think it comes across in the show that I didn't really ever feel outside of my comfort zone. You know, I didn't really ever feel like I have no idea how to do X, Y, Z that we're about to do. I feel very nervous. You know, Amalia had some moments where she was doing stuff she'd literally never done before. That was never my experience. And so when you sort of have that experience, this is one of the things I talk about in my article, The Psychology of Miniature Painting. You have 3 zones, right? Let's talk about the 3 zones while we're here. let's pretend this is a circle, and then there's a bigger circle, and then there's a huge circle. Alright? This little circle here is called the comfort zone. Everyone has heard of the comfort zone before, staying in your comfort zone. Most people have heard of the panic zone. So the panic zone is this big circle. It's this one. Panic. But the one that's in between is the money maker. This is called the zone of learning. So it's when you take a step outside of your comfort zone, you are starting to create new neural pathways in your brain, and you are creating opportunities to learn new things. Learning only happens when we're challenged, not when we're doing things we've always done. But the common mistake that people make is if you step too far out of your comfort zone, you get to the panic zone. And when we're in the panic zone, we just, our brains, they're not learning. They're instead basically going into fight or flight. And they don't want to learn anymore. They just want to turn off and go back to safety. Go back to the comfort zone. So when you are, and the reason I'm talking about this now is when you're learning a new thing, especially in the miniature hobby, it's kind of important to not reach too far. Like, as soon as you try and do something that you've never done before, you're very likely to go into the panic zone if it's too big a stretch. And you know, Amalia with the OSL was probably an example of that in practice, where she really just struggled to retain anything, absorb anything, be able to create to the level that we know she can, because she was just in the panic zone and wasn't really able to function at her normal level. So this comes into play for me in the fact that because I was in my comfort zone most of the time, there wasn't a huge amount of learnings that I took. I don't know if I don't think they put this in, but Andy was like, I'm about to show you how to use your airbrush. And then he sort of turned to me and said, Deno, do you want to run this class, mate, or do you want me to? I said, you're good, mate, you got it. So I sat back up the back and just like fucked about for a bit. Andy's a better airbrusher than me probably, but he doesn't use it as frequently as I do. So yes, that's a long-winded way, no sequel for you, of me saying that there wasn't like a lot of stuff that I learnt that that has come back. But what I did experience was new paints. I did experience a new airbrush. I did experience a new environment, which created some really fun experiences where I painted in a way that I haven't painted for a while. So probably the main takeaway for me that I had was, it's okay for me to spend a bit more time on a model. It's not going to kill me to spend a little bit of extra time. I get too excited about how fast I am sometimes that I forget that it's okay to spend a bit of extra time on a piece if you want. If you want. And I have wanted to at times recently. But not always. So yeah, I hope that's a good enough answer. It's probably a terrible answer, actually, on reflection. I just spoke for about 10 minutes about something that was completely unrelated to the question. Bob, great question. Always happy to answer any questions about anything that I can talk about. And Maxime was not disruptive. He was actually quite endearing for most of us there. It was hilarious at times. He was absolutely as chaotic as the show has made him out to be. Really, really just doing wild stuff and like throwing things around but we found it very endearing and quite amusing. I think because we all had a really close bond, so it wasn't really something that we were going to be too bothered by. He was incredibly creative though, and I think that's an important part to call out. That chaos led to some absolute creativity that very few other people could have matched. Anastasia and Carla, obviously, very creative, and Carla and Maxime as a pairing was just a powerhouse. Their duel was sublime. Yeah, he's 25, I think. 25, 26. He was the baby boy. I might answer this and hope that it's not too. Yeah, no, I think it's fine to say this. The final piece that I do is my favourite thing I do in the whole competition. So it's yeah, my favourite thing that I did. I do not think that is a spoiler. Perfect is the enemy of good, mate. Great saying. I've got two great quotes lined up for my next two Instagram posts. I'll tell you one of them now. It's by Seneca. It's luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. What a great quote. My airbrush. So as I said very early at the start, I don't do a very good job of shilling products. I actively refuse to promote products unless I genuinely believe in them. Have done a great job of doing that. This is a fantastic airbrush. I will absolutely recommend this airbrush. However, this is a very detail-oriented airbrush, and unless you are planning on doing hyper-detailed work, this is not a great workhorse airbrush. So this would not be what I would recommend. In the show, I actually used the other one, which I think is the Ultra, as the only airbrush I used in the show. I actually kept this one pristine because I was hoping that we'd get to keep them, and I pressured them if I could keep them because I was like, I'll take it home and then I could have a pristine airbrush. And they said to us, yeah, we've spoken to Harder and Stenback, and you can take these airbrushes. I was like, yes. So they boxed them up, but they put someone else's airbrush in there. They gave me some fucker who hadn't even cleaned it. I reckon it was Aaron. So they gave me Aaron's airbrush. So he got my immaculate fucking airbrush, and I got this dog that had been used. It's fine. It had been used for like 2 days. So anyway, really good product. But I would suggest that the Ultra is a better product for the majority of people. The airbrush that I use and have used for a long time is this one. It is an Iwata Eclipse HPCS. This is a very big cup, so you can do a lot of paint. It has quite a big nozzle. I think it's 0.5, maybe 0.4. I don't really know. Go and look it up. But it does a lot of stuff. Airbrushing is all about control. When you are controlled with your airbrush, you can achieve a lot of things, even with a big nozzle. I don't ever switch to my detail airbrush unless I'm really trying to do something super precise, which is very, very infrequent. Yeah, what an absolute stitch up that was. I'm still fucking spewing about that. Classics. I blame Lucas. No, it was actually a hectic thing because we were still using the airbrushes in the final, so everything got packed up in the last hour before we all had to go to dinner. So yeah, no real judgment. It's wonderful. I got a free airbrush, so zero complaints. This is the last one. Yeah, we've got one to go. This is the final. 3 people enter, or 1 person leaves. Technically, all 3 of us will leave, I suppose, but only one of us will leave the Miniature Master. I do, yeah, I do. Here it is. I talked about it a little bit before, Slangers, but they 3D printed a little bucket and a little bottle of cleaner, and this is a broom. It broke in my carry-on, unfortunately, so I lost a little stick for the broom, but that was a broom. And yeah, I told the story about it. I'm going to type it up in an Instagram post tomorrow and explain everything about the context of that, because it's actually one of my favourite things about the show, about being there. But to give you a very brief explanation, Slangers, my desk was always clean, and there's the 3 wonderful people who would come in between shots and clean up all of the desks, so everything looked clean. They would always come to my desk and everything would be done, all the paints would be put away, and everything was done, so they just have to fill my water, and that was it. So yeah, they were, and I would always have a nice little chat to them, and yeah. So that's where that came from, and I'm so happy they put it in the show. I didn't know if they were going to put it in the show, because they've cut out some stuff in the interest of time, as they are going to have to do, but oh, let me sign. Let me sign. And one other thing I've done with my gold for this project anyway is add these little green tinges, which I'll do in a second. But yeah, a little bit of verdigris type stuff is good for this Lizardmen vibe, I think. We just ticked over 2 hours. How lovely. Well, I think that'll pass muster. So let's have a look at it in the context of what it looks like on my diorama, which is over here. Bob, while I'm switching cameras, I'm going to talk about that, because I actually disagree. I disagree with that perspective. And it's okay, you're allowed to feel differently to me. That's wonderful, and that's what makes life interesting. But I'll explain my logic, alright? I think you get to a point with a leaderboard, certainly with me there, where one person is just going to have an unassailable lead, and it's going to become really uninteresting. Oh. My show, my experience, I was never anywhere near the bottom. Same with Carla. She was never anywhere near the bottom. And so you would get to this point where you would have just a couple of artists who are so far ahead of the pack that there's no chance of anyone catching them. And I think that would create a very boring second half of the series. And it would also stifle creativity from the people in the show. There was no opportunity to risk. We're doing the kitchen, by the way. These are tiles for the kitchen, so just ignore this stuff. Yeah, so I think that the leaderboard sounds great in theory, and yes, we all want to see more art from everyone, and yes, it sucks that Natalia went home, and it sucks that they did stuff that wasn't their best. You know, it sucks that Maxime went out on his best piece. It sucks that Amalia went. But I think that the elimination format forced people to really push and try. You know, if you get someone who gets an overwhelming lead, they're just not going to do anything outlandish. They're just going to be safe and consistent and good. So I genuinely think that the right approach for the show is elimination. I do not have any creative control or decision making in the show, so they'll do whatever they'll do, and I'll support them no matter what. But it's my opinion that the show was made better by having elimination. Here's my diorama. Let's spin it around a little bit, I guess. Oh, this guy's here actually. I need to finish painting him a little bit. This guy goes here. And there's one model that stands up here, but he's not going to be done for tomorrow. But this, I've just got to do some feathers on him. So yes, I'm taking this to a competition on the weekend, and it's going to be mostly unfinished. There's not any single figure on there that's actually finished. So I like to get all of my figures to a certain level so we can then look at the context of the whole piece and work with the interactivity of them and work out, this guy needs to be a higher value, this guy needs to drop a little bit more, have some more atmosphere, and lots of little things. It's funny you should mention that, mate. These little things are going to be red. Nice little triangle. Beautiful. You are learning. So then it's absolutely right that we've got to spend a bit more time with people, which is nice. And I think it's going to be a really beautiful final episode because of the extra time we get to spend on what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. Yeah. The judges had a really tough time because we were all staying together and because we all spent the time together. It must have sucked for them to have to knock someone out. So I get it. It's never easy being a judge, and it would have been even harder in this context. There is no break day. That one was Wednesday, Thursday of the final week. That episode you just watched. I don't think I can say that. Maybe. There's 2 more days of filming left. Yeah, leaderboard. I get the concept and I get it in principle, but I do genuinely feel that elimination is the right format, and I say that as someone who would heavily benefit from a leaderboard. Heavily benefit. So yeah. I was going to fill these with blood. Do you think that's the go, or should I just do water? Clear water, maybe. I don't know, these guys, this is very sacrificial vibe. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I ought to do more on this guy, actually. I forgot about that. I really need to do a bit more on him. Yeah, blood will look good. Glossy red will look cool. So yeah, this is probably still a few weeks away from completion, as it were. I've got a lot of little foliage elements that I want to add. I've got some more of this. Can you see? Yeah, these hanging vines. So I'm going to put the hanging vines sort of more around here, and I'll airbrush that. I need to finish painting the leaves. They're just sort of blocked in at the moment. I need to finish painting the vines, again, sort of blocked in. Can you see this little dickhead at the back? Yeah, little dickhead. Funny guy. There you can see him, he's hiding. He's a chameleon skink. A lot of stuff just came through then. Let me answer each one after another. Yeah, so we did not have a break in between the episodes and the final. We did not have many breaks at all. There was only one weekend. The rest of the time was filming non-stop. 14-hour days, painting for a long time, very uncomfortable. Hinasia, I'm glad that it's feeding your creativity. I really just wanted the show to be something that was inspiring and wanted to bring more people into the hobby, because the hobby's given me so much in my life. This really felt like a lovely way to maybe just give a little bit back in the same way that hobby's given to me. So I'm glad, and a lot of people have shared that sentiment, that it's inspired them to start painting or pick painting back up after a break, and try some different things in their painting, try bust painting and stuff like that. So that's great, and I appreciate that comment. And Bob, yeah, the judges were heavily involved in the stuff throughout the whole process. So they were, probably they would come by every hour. I think most of it was filmed, and we would talk about the piece. And particularly this episode, the previous episodes they didn't have quite as much time, but this episode was much more them really trying to help us land on the best piece we could. I've seen some comments that people are like, oh, the judges should be doing blind judging, or the judges shouldn't be giving feedback because then it'll influence the painters. None of the artists that were there in that final four were influenced by the judges in a way that, like when you know what you do, when you know what your art is, when you know what you can do, you're taking that information, you're absorbing that information, and you're putting it into the lens of, does this fit what I think this is going to look like? And so it's never they're telling you should do this. I think one of the pieces of feedback I got was you should try a different colour for the electricity. And Borja, I think, was the guy who suggested maybe you should try doing black and then working up from there. And I was like, actually, black could be quite interesting. I might do black. And then that shaped the way that I painted the whole piece. So he didn't tell me to do black, but we just discussed it back and forth, which was a really useful thing. It was more like getting feedback from your mates about how to approach it. Blind judging is the most irrelevant factor in this competition, more so than anything else. There is no way that every single judge could not have just picked exactly who was who at every point. It was just so blatantly obvious. Oh, that's Deno. Yeah, that's Aaron. And it was completely pointless. No value in doing blind judging whatsoever. Absolutely no chance. But to answer your question, Bob, the critiques that we got early on were not as refined as we got later on. So, as they've said many times, it was a new experience for them. They learned, they grew, they learned what would be important for us and how we could, help them. So we had a feedback session. It actually was sort of triggered by Anastasia and Amalia's elimination, and that was a big sort of turning point, I think, for the show, because we all discussed what we thought it needed to be, and I think you can see the tone change a little bit from before and after that moment, where it does get a bit more British Bake Off than MasterChef. If you go back and watch the series, you'll probably see that tone shift a little bit more obviously. And it was because we had this big discussion and this big change about what we thought the show should be and how we wanted to represent the hobby. And so yeah, they were very understanding, supportive, but the more the thing went on, the better they got at delivering feedback. Because we were staying in the hotel with Andy and Boa, we were in a bus ride going home with them, we all had a chance to talk to them more. I never asked for any more detail. I didn't care. I just wanted to paint my toys. Yeah, Carla did need to paint her tufts. Crazy mistake from her. Paint your tufts, people. I'm glad to see that you are painting busts, JD. I do love a good bust myself, both from a female chest perspective and also from a miniature painting perspective. Well done. My favourite piece that someone else has painted across the whole thing, I could probably pick one from each person, but I tell you right now, the piece that Anastasia did in the episode just gone was killer. It was absolutely killer. I was firmly convinced that that was going to win that episode from about halfway through. I was like, that is unreal. That is the best piece right now, for sure. And I once again was correct. Who else did cool stuff? Aaron's Giant was absolutely sublime. It was stunning. Maxime copped a lot of flack for his little atmosphere piece, but it was one of the pieces that surprised me the most at the end of that day, because it doesn't jump off the table at you, but when you pick it up and look at it, it was really, really good, really good. I still have 100 board games to paint as well. I've got a lot. Any pointers on painting your first bust? Look, there's probably not enough time for me to answer that question in detail, but just keep in mind that painting a larger volume is actually a thing where you probably want to have slightly less contrast over a larger volume. So you don't want to have as big a contrast shift, value contrast, as you would normally. Yeah, Bob, it was, and it was felt very much by everyone there. You know, the reaction to that moment was something we all knew was coming. We all knew it was coming, and it was made worse because it was Amalia, who was just like everyone's favourite. We knew she was going to be the fan favourite from like moment one. When she won the first challenge, we were just like, oh my god, she's a killer. So yeah, so we knew that that was going to be a very interesting episode to see what the reaction was, and it was probably worse than we thought it was going to be, because the editing, there was nothing they could have done there. There was nothing they could have done. It was just a tough moment. It was a tough moment for everyone. The judges, if you go back and watch, they can't even look at them. They're having the worst time. Everyone was having an awful time. And I actually said this on a stream a couple of weeks ago. I sort of was standing up the back and I was thinking, it's just the wrong thing for them to do, to ask them to explain why they should stay. The right thing for them to do, if they need to have this moment, is to get them to talk about why their teammate should stay. You know, spend that time giving someone else positive reinforcement would have landed so much better for everyone. And I sort of thought about saying it, but there was so much emotion in the room, and there was so many people that were like involved in this, that I thought, it's the best thing for me to do is be quiet, which is a lesson that I've learned over a long period of time. I was, that's not a thing I would do, be quiet normally. So yeah, but there's a lot of emotions that night. We finished filming. Andy and Borja in the hotel spent hours talking to everyone. Emil called everyone together the next morning. We talked about it. We all had a lot of feedback about a lot of things in the show, and I think that was a real tipping point of when certainly the vibe of what the show was changed for the better, in my opinion. But I also want to be very clear that I don't think the vibe or anything was bad before that. It wasn't cutthroat. It didn't feel anywhere like awful or anything like that. It was a great experience for me. The whole time I just had the best fun, and everyone was super welcoming and really great. So he did cuss, but they might have edited it out. And this is another thing that you really have to keep in mind there's 5 cameras running for 14 hours. That's like 60 hours of content. They've edited that into a 45-minute episode. There is so much stuff that was said. Amalia saying that she's got major imposter syndrome was a storyline, that they put into the show. They could have picked a million things that she said. I'm sure she said, "I hate Deno." Like the Natalia said, she hated me in the first episode. She's like, "I'm gonna bash that guy." That's the storyline that they wove into it through editing, which then made that moment land even worse than it maybe needed to. They probably could have not put that stuff in, but I think when we look back on it, as us as viewers, I mean, not as contestants, when we look back on the show, I think because everyone was so invested, everyone felt so passionately about it, it really hit hard. But when we look back to that, if we put 2 different people in that situation that's not Amalia and Anastasia, let's say it's me and Aaron in that situation, that moment probably reads very differently, and it probably doesn't elicit that type of emotional response from people. It's because of the people, it's because of the storyline, and so yeah, I think we can only improve and learn from what we've done. Hey, thanks, Timbo. It's going okay. It's going to come to QMHE tomorrow, but it's not quite finished. But it'll pass muster, I think. At least it looks finished enough. I'm going to do this dickhead though. This dickhead. I need to do the feathers and stuff, so I'll do that tomorrow. Anyway. No, I'm not coming to SMC. My international travel for the year, for probably the next couple of years, was all tied up in that. I tapped out all of my leave from my job and then some to be able to do that. So, but Amalia's going, Natalia's going, I think Aaron's going, and Carla and Anastasia are going. So I think there's going to be a little M&M's reunion at SMC, with the exception of me and Josh. So should be able to catch up with them. Would I go back as a contestant or as what in what capacity? Yeah, if they said, Deno, we'd love you to come back for season 2 as a special guest to coach the contestants, I'd jump at the chance. I think it'd be amazing to go back and see all my friends. I think they won't do that because it's fucking $7,000 to fly there and stay there. They could get someone from Europe that'd be very, 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 very easy and a lot cheaper than me. Would I go back as a contestant? That one is a little bit harder. I had such a beautiful time, and it kind of felt like a thing that, just a really special experience for me. I'm 43, I'm about to turn 44 early next year, and I'm not going to die anytime soon, I hope. But I do feel like, my opportunities to do crazy stuff like that was a crazy experience. 2 weeks of non-stop painting in a really uncomfortable chair is just, it was wild. So I'm not sure if I would go back to do that same thing again. I might feel differently at some point soon. I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was. Here's an example, right? My desk it's kind of just underneath my chest. My desk is about this high, and my chair obviously goes up, so I've got a very comfortable painting setup here where I'm not putting any pressure on my back and all this sort of stuff. Simple ergonomics. We all know about it. The chair was sat about, I reckon, 12, 14 inches off the ground, it felt like to me. And there's no back. And the table was like probably 20 centimetres shorter than this table. So my whole posture was completely cooked. And every day I would have to have breaks. I'd have to walk around and stretch my back. And it almost felt like torture going to sit back down. It got better, like as my body got accustomed to it, it got less challenging. But doing that for that many days in a row, Scale Model Challenge actually, doing it for that many days in a row was just a very intense thing, and I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change any part of it, but it was definitely more physically demanding than I was prepared for. So I think, and it's sort of also, as I've said in the stream, my hobby is all about enjoyment and enjoying my experience. And that was a lot more forcing myself to do things than I would normally do. And it was cool to experience that. It was cool to put myself back in kind of like a Deno from 15 years ago, who was really pushing and trying to win medals and really trying to push myself. But that's kind of not what my hobby is and not what my vibe is anymore. And I think I did a pretty good job of representing that and what my vibe is in the show, which is just that I love painting toys and I want to paint toys and that's fun. But it was just to a level that I don't really do much anymore. So it was a great experience. I loved every second, but I would think about doing it again. It might not be something I would choose to do again. But let's say they have an episode in season 6 where they bring back former contestants. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, I did this thing where I'd bend over and I would like put my whole body weight down and just let my body hang, and it would sort of decompress my back. I had to do that like 5 times a day, and I had to walk around and get fresh air, and I'm old. I was the oldest person there. I was the oldest painter there. There you go. Alright friends, I'm going to head off. Great chats. I hope you're all enjoying the show. I certainly am loving getting to feel all those feelings again and remember all of my friendships and all of the times that we had and little moments that they've chosen to portray on stream. So it's been really sweet. Next week is the final episode. It is 2 a.m. for me, and I'm going to set my alarm and get up and chat in the live chat on the final episode. So I look forward to hopefully interacting with some of you then. It will be 2 a.m. for me, so I will not be at peak Big Deno performance, but I will be there. So I can't wait. It's going to be great. It's going to be so cool to see the final episode. And I hope that they make it a long one. I hope it goes for like an hour or longer. I'd love to see it. It was great. Good night all. Have an amazing week.